Welcome to The Whole Pack, where we challenge black and white thinking in holistic pet care and dive into the controversial topics everyone's thinking about but nobody's saying out loud. I'm Sunny Gandera.
And I'm Melissa Sherman, and we are two holistic pet health practitioners here to prove that holistic care can include critical thinking, self-care, and yes, even Western medicine when needed. This is a judgment-free community we wish we'd had when we started our journey.
Welcome back to the Whole Pack podcast. If you have spent any time at all in the world of holistic pet health, you already know today's guest. And if you don't know her yet, you're about to understand why so many of us think of her as a North Star. Chris Besant has over 38 years of experience in veterinary medicine, including certificates in veterinary acupuncture, veterinary chiropractic, and veterinary Chinese herbology. Imbued with Eastern philosophy and the knowledge that food is the foundation of health, Dr. Besant also received her degree in nutrition, founding the Simple Food Project with recipes formulated with nothing but whole foods. Medicus Veterinary Diets, the first freeze-dried therapeutic diet using only whole foods, was launched shortly after. Currently, she divides her time overseeing the Simple Food Project, Medicus Veterinary Diets, and Herbsmith, a manufacturer of innovative herbal and nutraceutical solutions, providing a personalized approach to health for dogs and cats. All are owned and operated out of her facilities in southeastern Wisconsin. She's not a busy woman at all. But for me, this conversation is a personal one because Chris is my mentor and one of the teachers who changed and shaped the way I see animals, and the work I do every day carries her fingerprints. So today, she's here to talk to us about traditional Chinese veterinary medicine and how it changes the way we see the animals in our care, not as a list of symptoms, but as a whole individual beings. Dr. Chris, big warm welcome to the Whole Pack podcast. We are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited. I'm going to just echo what Sunny said. I'm so excited to have you here. So for anyone meeting you for the first time today, how would you describe what you do?
Oh boy. I would say that I've been a holistic veterinarian for 38 years, and my quest has always been to be able to provide a solution to any problem that came my way. So I learned chiropractic, I learned acupuncture, I learned Chinese herbs, all in a way of providing more tools in my box so that every patient that came my way, I was able, as a veterinarian, was able to help them. And so my practice was always a combination of Western thought, Western veterinary thought, and then traditional Chinese medical thought as well, and was able to kind of sort out which would be the best path to be able to get that pet to resolution. So it really, the businesses, Medicus, Simple Food Project, and Herbsmith were really founded on the idea that I was working all day, every day, seeing patients, and they were doing well, and how could I share it with the world? And the way to do that was to partner with wonderful pet health coaches like you guys, really fabulous high-end holistic pet stores, and then certainly other veterinarians as well. So that's kind of how I got to this point in life, was trying to make a difference in the pets' lives.
And you definitely are.
People like you guys that, Sunny is amazing, and the idea that anything that I taught her is a positive influence on an animal I'll never meet was my goal, my life's vision.
I love it.
Well, you are certainly super inspiring, and I think about you every time I talk to a client. So I want to thank you so much for being that inspiration, for doing what you do. So we're very excited to keep this conversation going and have other people be introduced to you as well.
Great.
And I just love the idea of sharing your knowledge to other people. So more at the end of the day, like, we all want to help animals, as many as we can, by sharing your knowledge, you're reaching more animals than you ever possibly could as a single person. So that's really incredible. So after 38 years, when an animal walks into the room, what do you see now that you could not see in the first years out of vet school?
I think holistic is really, that term is so diluted these days that what does it really mean? For me, it's looking at the entire animal. And in veterinary school, so traditional veterinarians you have to come in with a complaint. So you say, my dog has diarrhea, or my dog had a seizure, or whatever it is. And then traditional veterinary medicine is going to treat that issue, period. And holistic medicine says, okay, you have that issue, but let's look at the entire dog or the entire pet or the entire person, and look at what led to the exacerbation of this symptom. So the symptom is just another sign of a whole pattern that we're looking at the animal. So when I see a patient, my immediate is, are you young, are you old? Are you in between? Is your behavior appropriate for your breed? So if a Australian Shepherd comes into my office and just lays down and falls asleep, I'm like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
and so knowing normal is a big deal. And then figuring out, how did they get from normal to abnormal, and what are we going to do? What tools are we going to use to get them back to health again and balance? And sometimes it is Western medicine. I mean, thank God we have antibiotics when we need them. And when we need surgery, thank God that we have them. And we're so fortunate that we can have a team of people that help us keep our animals healthy. And I think that we are just another part of that team. And looking at each individual animal, not just as a list of their symptoms, but really looking at them almost like nature. And that in nature, you can have too much wind and too much damp and too much heat, and the same thing applies in the microcosm of our animals' bodies. And so everything in traditional Chinese medicine is to try to rebalance them again. And then, of course, we think that the drug or the surgery or the herbs or the acupuncture or the food changes is what causes that to happen. And really, it's the innate intelligence of the body that is trying to get back to homeostasis. And what we're doing are just tools that are kind of pushing it along the way. And then the innate intelligence of the body is what harmonizes it. And so, of course, with a young dog, that happens really quickly. So you could do one treatment, one of whatever you're recommending, and they dramatically change immediately. Then you could have an older dog that you do everything right, and you do all the right things and all the right steps, but they don't have the chi, the energy, the life force left in them to be able to maintain that homeostasis. So that's kind of a vision into so much more than just treating the symptom. Is you're treating the entire patient and the entire pet and trying to get them back to a balance of yin and yang, a balance of hot and cold, and have a nice, smooth, even movement of qi throughout their body. Qi is like the electricity to the body.
I love that. When you're talking, it's like you really are paying so much attention to the animal, which we often don't get these days when we have veterinarians, vet offices being bought up by corporations, and you have maybe 10 minutes, and how much can you really assess in that time, right? When you're under stress. And you have a line that I love that says, "Who says they don't talk? I say we don't listen." And I think that's really so important because we've lost a lot of that in today's world, right? So what are some other ways that, TCVM has changed how you listen for or pay attention to? You mentioned the Australian Shepherd, that lays down, and what's breed specific. What are some other things? And I do want to actually hint a little bit at the tongue and pulse evaluation because I think that's also really fascinating. And I actually had a chance to do that this week because I now work at a vet's office, and it was amazing. So I want to hear a little bit more about how you sort of see how you pay attention and what you can tell from just looking at the animal when he walks into the room.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick step backwards into the corporate veterinary clinics, because corporate veterinary clinics also, there's exact ways that you should treat each thing. And regardless of what position in life they are, regardless of their energetics, regardless of anything, all dogs get treated exactly the same way. And that is so not holistic medicine. So when I go back to how I look at that patient, the first step is just observation and seeing what they do. And then listening while I'm observing. Usually the owner is telling me stuff. So they're telling me that he always vomits at 3 a.m, or he was fine until we had workmen in the house, and now he can't calm down anymore. And so as this owner is telling me all their history, which is extremely important because they're the ones who really know this pet more than anybody does, I'm also observing what they're doing. And then I might ask some other questions like, do they have urgency when they have diarrhea? Is it foul smelling? Does it happen every morning, but yet there's no urgency and there's no foul smell to it, but it's always soft stool? That is, all those things are telling you something. And then we have to kind of put those together. But that's just the surface level. So then the next level is going deeper and saying what's going on within the body itself. And so that's where it's less subjective, more objective. And so doing a tongue evaluation is going to tell you what you see in the tongue is what's going on within the body. And then we do a pulse evaluation where we feel the pulse, and the pulse can tell you is another window into what's going on within the body. Then I take all of these, I think of it kind of like a logical puzzle, in that I take all of these little pieces that I've gotten from the owner, I've gotten from observation, I've gotten from the tongue, the pulse. It might be also feeling different acupuncture points, or feeling the texture of the skin, or how does he respond when I go to touch him. All of those things give me little clues that I can put together that usually will either lead me to more questions, or it kind of leads me to what's going on with that pet and what is the pattern. And then based on that pattern is how I choose which acupuncture points I would use, which herbs I would use, which food I would recommend in a way to get them back to normal again. So acupuncture or acupressure would be like this big jolt of electricity. And then I send them home with herbs, and then the herbs are an everyday persuasion in the right direction. And the same thing with food. Food is medicine. It's much weaker, right? You can't compare a banana to a steroid injection, but all of it together is slowly but surely kind of pointing the body in the right direction, and the innate intelligence of the body takes over from there. But that's not the end either. So then it's also, as Sunny knows, I'm always preaching, like, how did they respond? Like, I know right away, did they respond well to acupuncture? So did they fall sound asleep on my exam table? And then when they woke up, they're like, oh, that felt great. Or were they agitated the whole time? And that's going to tell me something. That tells me I probably didn't get the right points if they're agitated the whole time, or that they're very in excess. They're very, that's all they could tolerate is that itty bitty bit. Then I also, when they come back, then a big part for me is how did they respond? Did they respond well, which of course is what I want 90% of the time. But if they didn't respond well, that gives me clues too. To say, oh, I used way too strong of acupuncture on this older pet, that I was exuberant and I wanted that pet to do better quickly, so I did too much and they were exhausted for days afterwards. Now I know, okay, do it more gently, take your time and gradually develop them. So how they respond means a lot to me as well. And that helps me even further refine what I'm doing with them. But what I loved about acupuncture and Chinese medicine is this logical puzzle, is this awareness, this really watching them closely and independently thinking about what's going on with them. And as Sunny knows, that's a lot harder to do than if somebody said, all diarrhea gets metronidazole and a blanket period. That's it.
Right.
That's fine for emergency treatment, but that's not long-term going to change anything. It allows the innate intelligence of the body a possibility of recovering, but if they don't, we need to do more.
Yeah, this way of looking at it is just so mind-blowing, and having learned from you, like you just have to change your mindset about everything, right? Because, you use the word pattern, versus diagnosis. And I feel like that's just so much more hopeful because there's always options. There's always something else we can try, as you said, based on the animal's response. And I think that, especially for me, I work with a lot of cancer patients, pet parents just want some sort of hope. I'm not promising them they're going to live forever, but like there's always something else we can try. And with you, as you also say that to me. So for the first time, for someone who hears that for the first time, what is the easiest way? And I mean, you've already explained this, but to distinguish between naming a disease and that's it versus, reading a pattern of disharmony. What would you say would be the best way to distinguish those two?
I think a pattern is really looking at how did that animal get to that point, and not just here's that dog that is having that seizure and so they're going to get seizure meds. Absolutely great. I would not say not to do that, but I would take it a step further and say what was the pattern that led that to be able to occur. And so was it from a Chinese veterinary perspective, we would think it's either phlegm misting the mind, so that dog has too much phlegm in his body, or is it a dog that has liver wind and is really high drive, excitable, over the top, and a seizure is just that extension of that excessive yawn. So the pattern is going to give me a lot more details into what's going on with that pet, which also allows me to be a little more exact in what herbs and what acupuncture I'm going to treat and use rather than just suppressing the symptom. And that is a really big deal, is the symptom, even though it's what we want to get rid of, in my opinion, that symptom is a reflection of the underlying pattern that allowed that symptom to occur. So I'm not interested in just suppressing the symptom. I want to get to the root of why, which is the pattern of why that symptom could have occurred, and then get to the root of it and treat that underlying root rather than just suppressing the symptom, and then the symptom will go away. So if, for example, in an allergy dog, it's hot, yawn in excess, inflammatory over the whole body, and I don't want to just use steroids that decrease the inflammation. I want to use herbs and acupuncture that help to decrease that hypersensitivity reaction that that dog is expressing. And so what I found after 38 years of using this in veterinary practice is there's many things that we can reverse in veterinary medicine, that isn't considered reversible in traditional medicine. So in traditional medicine, we say allergies can't be reversed. They can only be managed. I'm here to say that's not true. That if you get to the root of it, you can stop that symptom, but it's really being more proactive, being more aggressive, but in a holistic way.
Yeah, that's true. I actually heard that today, in not this today, but this week in a vet's office, that you can't cure allergies. You can't, and I just thought of it. I thought of you.
Yeah,
I heard that.
yeah, and I can say I did it.
Yeah.
So what I bring to you guys is 38 years of trying, 38 years of learning, having the best training available in the world, and then applying it in practice to see how they respond. Kidney failure is another good one. Western medicine, once you have kidney failure, that's it. It's just a matter of time before they die. Chinese medicine, that's not true at all. Like, you can tonify kidney qi, and when you tonify kidney qi, you're making the kidneys start to function again. I had this really wonderful, they probably watched this, the wonderful pet parent and dog. And she came to me with her older Australian Shepherd and said, he was like 8 at the time, and she said, well, he's got protein-losing nephropathy, and the vets give him 6 months. And I just want him to be comfortable. And I said, well, I can absolutely guarantee that. So we put him on herbs, and we did acupuncture, and when he was 16, she said at one of her meetings, at one of our appointments, do you think I could stop the herbs? And I go, well, that probably sounded better in your head than at that point. He was getting so much older, and she had to help him up and down stairs, and but he didn't die of the kidney disease at all. He just lived out his long life and continued to trudge along, and hopefully she was able to tell that veterinarian that he was 8 years old when they gave him 3 months to live, and here he is now at 16 and still fine. And that was never the thing that took him. So it's a battle either way, whether you're using Western medicine or holistic medicine or Chinese medicine. And I would say also what I really love about Chinese medicine is it's just another tool, whether you like homeopathy, whether you like essential oils, whether you like traditional pharmaceuticals, all of those things are all tools that we're trying to utilize to get those animals back to health again. And it's really about the depth that you're looking in each patient.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to look at it that way too. So if we go back a little bit, a few years back for you, you charged no one for 6 months because you weren't convinced that TCVM wasn't just a fad. So was there a case, was there something in particular that really changed your mind where you're like, oh, wow, this is not just a fad. This is a different way of looking at things.
Yeah. It really, I kind of was thinking about, which patients were that. It was just all of them. In the beginning, I was just more conservative in what I knew that it could help. And then with time, slowly but surely, I'm like, no, we can fix this. We can reverse this. We can make a huge impact on their life. And because I'm Western trained as well, so I'm a traditional veterinarian, licensed to do surgery, licensed to do all pharmaceuticals, I never disregarded that. I just used it as another tool, as another piece of knowledge that I needed to help me look at it from a pattern diagnosis perspective. So it really was more, I would say to people, I'm not going to hurt your animal. I'm as well trained as it's possible in this world. So I've done all the best training available. I promise you I won't hurt them. And I just want an honest opinion. Did it help or not? I don't want the bias of I paid for it, so So of course it worked. I just wanted a true, honest opinion. And what would happen is over and over again, people would, right when you know how the universe is, and right when I would start to think, I don't know, am I really doing what I think I'm doing? Somebody would call and say, my dog is better than they've ever been. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. Because honestly, when you look at what I do, it kind of looks silly, you know, like I watch them and I feel their hind legs and I look at their tongue and then I have them lay down and I put needles in them and I send them home with a brown powder and tell them to change their food. And if you just looked at that, it would look silly. But I say, don't judge me by what I'm doing. Judge me by the results in 2 weeks. So if in 2 weeks your dog is not better, great, then judge me all you want. But and I had many clients that kept coming back year after year with multiple different pets, and they said, we keep coming back because you keep fixing them. And it wasn't about like this is so cool. It was really more about how can I fix them? How can I help them? And so I saw lots of cancer patients, and eventually University of Wisconsin-Madison started referring oncology patients to me. And here's what they said: we don't know what she does, but they do better, and they live longer and more vibrant lives with acupuncture and herbs than not. And I'm like, good enough for me.
Yeah, amazing, for sure. I just love that, you know, the whole approach you have also, and the TCVM in general, about, because in holistic health, we do focus on the every dog or every pet is an individual, right? And so I wanted to go into a little bit, which is a very important part of TCM, and that is the constitution of an animal, right? You know, every animal carry an elemental or constitutional temperament. So how does that, sort of knowing an animal's constitution change what you put in, you know, what you provide in terms of Chinese formulas, food? I mean, you know, basically Western meds, as we've discussed, you know, we just treat two dogs with the same diagnosis with the same thing, but that can actually be wrong, right? In TCVM. So how do you tell us about a case where that was the case, or you probably have hundreds.
Constitutions are based on the 5-element theory in Chinese medicine. And the 5-element theory is there's 5 basic elements in the world. So there's fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And each one of those elements have a yin and a yang meridian or organ that goes with that. And then each element has kind of personality types. So an earth animal is loving and kind and wonderful, but has no sense of personal space. Like it's that Labrador that just bashes into you, and he's going to do that for the rest of his life because he has no sense of personal space.
I have one here.
that wonderful, heavy-set woman at the picnic that feeds everybody else first. And she's the kind that you want to hug and be like, oh, thanks for having me. That would be earth. And so depending on what constitution they are, what element they are, that's usually going to be their strong part and their weak part. So in earth, it's spleen and stomach. So you could have, oftentimes those dogs have spleen issues. So they tend to have GI stuff. So they have loose stool and on and off GI upset. And it might be like low grade mild, and it could be inflammatory as well. So knowing their constitution helps me points me in the right direction, another clue as to what's going on with them. And the amazing part is all these little clues kind of come together to have this form and this picture of what that animal is. And the constitutional part of it helps to verify that, yes, I'm on the right track. So fire dogs are fun. Fire dogs are they're the sorority girls of the world. They're like, oh my God, I'm upset. All my friends are crying, so I'm crying. And I'm all excited at the dog park, so I'm all excited at the dog park. That is a fire element, and they're fun, and they're fun people to be around, fun animals to be around, but they also get over the top. So those are high anxiety, high arousal dogs that just can't bring that fire back down again. So that gives me a big clue as to what kind of herbs and what kind of acupuncture I'm going to use to allow that animal to bring that fire back under control again. And then it gets even more complex. This could be a whole podcast in itself, because then fire affects earth, and then fire can be affected by liver. And so it's just fascinating and really fun. And I would tell you that is a part of the first part of an exam, where I'm asking questions and I'm observing what they're doing. So earth animals are pudgy. they're all about eating. They're the Labrador that just eats and eats and eats, and they eat. And when they stop eating, that's when you know you got a problem. So a fire dog is not that. If a fire dog comes in and just lays down and relaxes, that's unusual for a fire dog. So it really just gives you more information overall, and it kind of goes with that thought process. And all that I say sounds really difficult. It's not. It's just putting on a different pair of lenses in your classes. You're just looking at it more in depth than you were before.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that, you built a simple food project and Medicus on the conviction that food is the foundation. And, there's a lot of pet nutritionists listening in. So in energetic terms, when we're keeping all these constitutions in mind, what are we actually doing, say, when we feed warming or cooling rather than just feeding nutrients?
Yeah, I would say that it is, of course, food is the foundation of health. And so what you feed or what you eat every day is just this gentle persuasion, sometimes in the right way, sometimes in the wrong way. And so when I've identified what I think that pattern is, then I want to use herbs as another food as another gentle tool. So does that dog tend to want to sleep on the cold tile in the wintertime? Or do they like to be in the sunshine? Or are they like a little chihuahua that loves to be under the covers all the time? So they're always too cold and they're seeking heat. So what I would choose is foods for that chihuahua, foods that are more warming. Even in the summertime, they would do better with foods that are more warming. A dog that has inflammation throughout the body, which is unfortunately the majority of dogs that I see have too much inflammation, that's heat. And so we want to use foods, oftentimes fruits and vegetables, that are really cooling and will bring that heat down. And certainly do it in a species appropriate manner, so that it's smaller amounts that you're going to be using, but you can strategically use food to, again, try to balance. And then the fun part is, if you look at food from a Western perspective, a lot of the fruits and vegetables that are considered cooling from a Chinese perspective are also anti-inflammatory. So all the fruits and the vegetables and the brightly colored vegetables, brightly colored fruits, all are filled with polyphenols and antioxidants. And what does that do? It decreases inflammation. So what I found as a veterinarian trained in both Western medicine and look at it from a Chinese medical perspective is we're saying the same thing, we're just using different terms. So in Chinese medicine, you'll say there's too much heat and there's excessive yang. Western medicine, you'd say they have a fever and they have too much inflammation in their body. Mm-hmm. So we're saying the exact same thing, we're just using different terms to describe it, and then we're using different tools to help to treat it. So to me, food is just one more tool that we can use. And when I say that, I'm saying that we've already eliminated them from a bad diet. So they're not getting ultra processed, they're not getting heavily heated brown balls with no nutrients, but they add a vitamin and mineral pack to it. They're still getting healthy live food that is free of carcinogens and glyphosate and all of those. So that's like the very baseline. And then we can add to that even more strategically and thoughtfully about how we're going to apply it to the pet. And it's amazing. Like for me, one of the first times that I really saw what food did was lamb and rice diets. So for how long throughout my lifetime, everybody's like, lamb and rice is the anti-allergy diet. Well, lamb is one of the hottest foods. So from a Chinese perspective, that's the opposite that you would do, because that's like adding kerosene to the fire. And so in the beginning, I would just take allergy pets off of a lamb and rice diet, put them on something like fish or duck or cooling foods, and they got better. Just with that. Just with that. And that made me really, in my heart, understand how important food is and how dramatic it can be. And granted, in the 1960s, lamb was a novel protein, right? But now, lamb is like one of the second or third top protein sources in commercial diets. So now it's not a novel protein anymore, and animals can develop an immune response to it. So it can be really dramatic.
Yeah.
So many of our listeners are health coaches or practitioners, not vets. And if they haven't thought of this before, they might be thinking about it now. But what can they safely do with TCVM thinking, and where do they absolutely need a TCVM vet alongside them?
Well, the beauty is that the FDA considers Chinese medicine just hoo-ha and means nothing. And so from a Chinese medical perspective, or from an FDA perspective, it's not even considered medicine. So that gives a lot of leeway. But I would say the line is pharmaceuticals. And never, as a pet health coach, take a dog off of pharmaceuticals. Because you don't know what that veterinarian knows. You don't know the history that veterinarian put that dog on. And people will always come to you and say, I want to get them off of phenobarbital. Well, that's a veterinary thing. And that is, you could have a veterinarian that works with you, that like in Sunny's case, where she has a whole clinic full of veterinarians that can handle that part of it. And then you as a pet health coach can add to it. So you've just got to not make comments on when they ask you, I want to get off of Rimadyl, I want to get off of this, get off, you need to talk to your vet. Here's what I have that can help you. And here's the thought process behind it. If they choose to take them off, that at least you're not practicing medicine without a license. If they go back to their veterinarian and their veterinarian is adamant that they don't, well, then they need to stay on it. But most veterinarians I've found, especially now, are younger women who are interested in lots of tools, are interested in knowing more. So most good veterinarians will use it as a learning tool. Like that's some of the ways that I began, is that there were cases I couldn't fix. And then an acupuncturist or a chiropractor would come in and fix them. And I was like, damn it, how did that happen? Not in a bad way. I was thrilled that the animal got care. But in a, darn, it's one more thing I need to learn. Because there's something to this. So
relatable.
Yeah.
Everything that pet health coaches do can help to educate veterinarians that there are other options out there. Everything doesn't have to be healed with a sledgehammer. There's other options that we could do that are complementary and might be more gentle. And then there are some times that Western medicine doesn't even acknowledge it. So Western medicine doesn't acknowledge the difference in the level of qi between an old dog and a vibrant, healthy puppy. They should be treated very differently because energetically they're very different. And another one is yin. Like yin is quiet, maternal, nighttime, passive, wintertime fluids. Western medicine doesn't really acknowledge yin at all. It acknowledges hydration. So is your dog properly hydrated by PCB and total protein, so blood work that tells you, yes, they have good hydration. But it doesn't tell you if that hydration is moving the way it should. It doesn't tell you if it's stagnated in the limbs or it's stagnated in the ears, so their ears are all cauliflowery and inflamed. And we look at it from a Chinese perspective and say, the fluids of the body aren't moving. They're not transporting and transforming the way that they should. So there's sometimes that Western medicine is absolutely fabulous. If my dog has a cruciate tear in a large breed dog, I'm going to have a surgery done, period. If my dog gets hit by a car, I'm going in to the emergency vet. But if I have that older dog who has chronic soft stool from the time they were 10 to 12, I'm going to look at other options, and other options might be TCV.
Wow, it's so fascinating, and I love that way you're seeing that. And we could talk to you for 5 more hours, and we've already decided you need to come back as part of a 3-part series. So I hope you've cleared your calendar.
Yeah.
But this will hopefully give viewers an intro to how fascinating this area of practicing, Chinese medicine is. And we want to just ask, because obviously we're all doing this for animals. So what do you think an animal seem to understand about its own healing that we as humans constantly miss?
That's a big one. That is a big one.
I know, we saved the most difficult one for last. Now that you've talked forever. Yeah. Let's just go out with a big bang.
They don't care.
Right.
Animals don't care. They don't care. They just want to get better. So when it means, at the time I was practicing out of my vet clinic was at my farm. And so kind of like all creatures great and small, I had in my day, I might have 2 kitties in the morning and a couple dogs and then a goat. In the afternoon, I'd have a show cow come in, and then a horse, and then some more dogs. And so it was this variety of animals. And what I loved the most about the animals is that they didn't care. They had no judgment. They didn't care why they got better. They just wanted to get better. And so they were like, okay, this goofy woman can wiggle me around. Perfect. She can look at my tongue if she wants. I don't know what's wrong with her, but she can feel my pulse. I don't mind. It doesn't hurt. So animals would just allow this. And then when they came back and they felt so much better, it was so gratifying and so fabulous. But to me, that was a thing that really made it stick in my mind that this is valid, is because they didn't care, but they got better anyhow. So they just thought I was a weirdo, and that as long as it doesn't hurt me, I'll do whatever she wants. I don't care. Mom says I have to lay here, I'll lay here. But the fact that they got better without that placebo effect, there is no placebo effect. Where in humans there is. We pay money and we have our egos, and we made that decision, so we're going to stand behind it. And animals don't care. They don't care. They just want to get better. And that was, I think, part of what made it so refreshing for me, because I don't like to fight. All these people, like you talked about, Western people fighting, this is the only way. No, this is the only way. I don't want to do that. I just want to make
Yeah.
animals better. I just want to make people happy. And
Yeah.
and animals just were that.
Yeah, that's why we invited you, because we are of the same thought. You know, the whole pack podcast was created because we want to invite all voices, and we want to have an open discussion without being defensive or saying you're right, I'm wrong, because, you know, we're all constantly learning. And that's what I took away from your course, which I'd love for you to just quickly mention, because I took your course in TCVM and it was wonderful over several months, and I've never felt so supported by someone, also because you're there for us, and you, like you said, we are an extension of you. I love that way of seeing it, and just that you don't have an ego. You're also saying, I've done this for 40 years and I'm barely like scratching the surface too, and I can see that when you're looking to this, you know, modality is enormous, but it's also, as you said, simple. So we tend to complicate things.
Yes.
To your point about animals, they don't care. So I think we should learn from them. But give us an idea, because I know that there's plans for something coming in the fall.
Yes, yeah. So we, with the pet health coaches, so Dr. Ruth, we do a herbal course, and the herbal course is really, it's all Chinese medicine, so it's not Western herbs, it's Chinese herbs. And so we go from herbs 101, and then we do herbs 201 and herbs 301. And 101 is just the introduction to it. So it's, you know, how much herbs should you, what's dosages, when is there drug interactions, when is it appropriate versus it not appropriate. Kind of lays the foundation for the next class. And then the next class we go through Bensky, which is essentially the Bible of Chinese medicine and herbs, and then we go through every single of the top herbs in every single chapter of that book, and then I apply it to animals and give you, like, this one takes a long time or this one takes a less time. And then the third course, so it's kind of a package, you can do individually or you can do it all. And then the third course is mind maps, and mind maps are kind of my brain on paper.
Yeah, I love them. They're great.
With the logical thought process that I go about when I'm thinking of a patient and trying to select what's going to be the best herbs for them. And so that mind map looks at all the kidney herbs, and then all the herbs for heart problems, and all the herbs for spleen and stomach issues. So it gets really in depth. So it's a lot of work, and you get out of it what you put into it. But it gives you this opportunity to truly, deeply go through all the Chinese herbs that you should want to use in your veterinary practice or use with your patients, but doing it in a very educated way. So there's no way that we can talk about all those herbs without talking about yin and transportation and transformation. So it's lots of Chinese medicine as well, specifically for dogs and cats. And then how can we apply it? So we're going to be offering that course again in the fall. And my whole goal behind it is to teach you what I know after 40 years of using it in practice, and encouraging you to try to dabble in it and start using it. And the more you start using it, the more you'll understand how powerful and helpful it is, and in conjunction with Western medicine or as a modality in itself. And then my book should be published soon too, and we'll have the book available to the students. It's called Two Paths to the Summit, with the summit being complete health. And I talk about 80 different formulas, and one part of it is all the Chinese medicine behind that formula, but then I take that exact same formula and do all the Western medicine. So we cite, like, does it affect the pH of the gut? Does it decrease COX-1 and COX-2 inhibition, and all the Western? So if you're the sort of veterinarian or pet health coach that is interested in the Western perspective, here's the Chinese medicine, but using the Western perspective framework and pharmaceutical framework. And if you love Chinese medicine, then here it is. So it kind of reinforces both sides and goes with that idea that we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it in different ways. And so whatever connects for you as a practitioner, whatever reinforces how you're going to apply it to the patient, that was the goal of that book. So that should be published in like early part of 2027.
Fantastic. We can't wait for that. Yeah. We'll definitely, share that once it's out. If there's a link for pre-orders, I know that's very important when you're publishing a book. So we'd love to support you on that. And that's definitely something I'm going to pick up, and I'm very, very excited about that. And as an alumni of your course, student, I can say that it's definitely worth the investment. And I was so excited to see it offered because I had wanted to learn about TCVM, but the only way someone could do it was to be a vet through the Chi Institute. So when that came out, I was like, wow, this is such an incredible opportunity. So for anyone listening, don't miss out on this course because you can't get a better teacher than Dr. Besson. And she's funny too. So no dryness. We just have lots of stories and just an all around, really, really wonderful course and incredible material. So yeah, I definitely we'll share how you can sign up in the fall as well. And wanted to thank you again so much, Dr. Besson. And we were serious. We're going to invite you back for more discussions about this. And and then, is there anything else? Where can people find you?
I have a Facebook. You can go to our websites. You can call in, so you could email, you could call, you could do Facebook, and they'll get it to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And we have a really responsive customer service group that they protect me well, but they also will get me questions and I'll answer them right away. And then we do this thing called Curate the Bowl, which is it's a quiz format that you fill out all the details of your animal and what's going on. I personally look at them every day and make recommendations, and I might ask more questions, but it's all free. Just to kind of help point you in the right direction. And if it's herbs that need a more consultation, I would then recommend to you guys, to the alumni of the class, that you guys take over the course or take over the patient and manage it and do all of that. So it's the Curate the Bowl is a great way to kind of get my input on what's going on with your pet for free.
That's an incredible resource. Yeah, we'll definitely share all of that in the show notes. And thank you again for all your wisdom. And Melissa has to kick us off. Otherwise, I'm going to start asking more questions.
Thank you. I know.
We'll be here till tomorrow.
I have questions too, but I'm going to stop. So thank you so much, Dr. Chris. And thank you for all our listeners. Make sure that you like us, follow us at The Whole Pack on all socials. And we'll put your details in the show notes. So if you want to find Dr. Chris, we will share that with you. So thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
Before we go, we want to remind you that the information shared on The Whole Pack is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace veterinary medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your veterinarian before making any changes to your pet's diet, supplements, or healthcare routine. Every animal is unique, and what works for one may not be appropriate for another. We're here to empower you with knowledge, but your vet is your partner in your pet's individual care.